Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Rochelle and Miriam. We're so happy to be with you again today. And we're here in my clinic on the beach, so hopefully you're hearing the sound of the waves and enjoying them with us in the background. And
2 days of ceasefire.
2 days is already 2 days of ceasefire. Wow, that's the longest we've had in the last almost 2 years.
Yes.
Thank you, Hashem. Thank you. I remember the days when we were counting the minutes and the hours. So we're already counting the days, Baruch Hashem. And I want to talk about the transition we want to talk today about all of us transitioning from that place of everything we've been going through in the last almost 2 years, year and 3/4, and especially the magnified last 2 weeks. This podcast, this chapter is good for all of us who were in Israel, but all of us who are around the world and are experiencing personal turmoils and anxieties, and also national collective Jewish anti-Semitism and whatever you're going through personally or collectively around the world. And I hope you enjoy this one. And please go on the bottom and send us a thumb up so that we know that you're with us. And if you think this is good for someone else, please share it with them too. And here we are. Hello, Rochelle.
Hi, Miriam. Well, each of us is like you. One day everything was closed, couldn't go to anywhere, couldn't do any shopping. Everything was closed, and the next day everything is open, right? So we're supposed to send the kids back to school, go swimming. Everything is literally.
Well, we don't have to go swimming.
You don't have to, but you have the option, okay? So it was the strangest thing to go from nothing to everything, and the body just doesn't respond as quickly as the eyes. And I found that I couldn't emotionally make that transition from being anxious and fearful to trusting that it was safe. I just couldn't do that. And Miriam was telling me that there are a lot of instances where people are suffering from trauma and anxiety, and making the transition back to calm is much slower than we expect. It's much slower than we expect. And I also find...
But it can be much quicker than we think.
Okay, how?
Well, so basically what happens is that we need to make the connection between our conscious and our subconscious. So our subconscious is still at the stage of flight or fight.
Yes.
And we need to tell our subconscious that it's now okay, that the danger is over, there's no line right now. But we can't tell it very sincerely to our subconscious or to our conscious, that because we're really not so sure, because this line has been around for now almost 2 years.
Yep.
So it's like that place of, like, when you were fighting a lion in the woods and whatever 200 years ago, and in the woods of Europe, and you knew, or whatever, the wilderness, and you knew that you had an incident, it's over, and now you're back to normal. Here we have an ongoing situation. And plus, what makes it really, really bad is the media.
Yeah.
And that we're paying so much attention to the media.
Yeah.
That we're allowing ourselves to go to the traumatic stage by watching all kinds of videos, whether it's, the battles of our soldiers, and whether it's the terror attacks, and whether it's the whatever it is.
Also the politics.
And also all the talks about it, exactly.
You know?
Is this country going to attack us, or that country is going to attack us? And what is the political situation around the world? And even if we're not going to be tech, what is going to be the financial situation of the world, and who's going to have the next war with whom, and are we facing a World War III, and et cetera, et cetera. We're facing so many questions, so it's really hard for us to tell our consciousness, our conscious,
our subconscious,
and our subconscious,
the little child in us,
exactly, that it's okay.
Okay. Yeah,
we're okay for now.
Yeah.
But if we want to treat it from a spiritual point of view, which we're trying to, because what happens is the natural mode in us is always to look for the danger. We need to be aware of that. So we need to also tell that to our subconscious. Hey, fellow, you're looking for the lack. You're looking for the danger. It's okay that you're looking for the lack and the danger.
Self-protection.
But you're damaging yourself now when looking for the lack and the danger. Because you're not allowing yourself to at least live today when it's calm. You're not allowing yourself to live peacefully. So what you're doing to yourself is you're pumping yourself with stress hormone, while you could be pumping yourself with positive hormones or positive energy.
You're also used to living moment to moment. Like, I realized that I haven't done like my vegetable shopping. All I can think about is what I needed today. So it's like I have to transition from that living literally moment to moment, not being able to make any plans from the future, to living in like a normal environment, and looking at a broader picture and a longer period of time where you can do some planning. That's a transition too.
I think that's exactly, we started talking about it earlier, that's exactly what we don't need to do. We got used to living in a world where we're planning our trip to wherever for next year, right? We're planning our retirement, we're planning our trip, we're planning whatever, right? We're planning a million things.
Yeah.
And this, I was just at 2 weddings that were planned in half a day last week. We did 2 weddings last week. 2? One I organized and another one someone else organized. Yeah, right. It wasn't for my kids, it was just for a friend. Yeah. Not just, but for a friend. Mm-hmm. And we planned that wedding, let's say, not in half a day, but, well, it was Shabbos in the middle. So it was kind of half a day, really.
Right.
And my relative planned a grandiose wedding that she had planned for almost a year, and the whole time, really, our prayers were with the groom, who was in Gaza most of this time, and they planned this unbelievable grandiose wedding, and the last minute, the wedding hall canceled and closed the wedding. Yeah, closed and canceled the wedding, so they had to replan in 5 minutes. And they literally, the wedding was on Thursday, they literally ordered an alternative catering on Wednesday night. And they thought it was just going to be kind of like whatever, sandwiches and, but it was a beautiful, catered wedding in their parking lot with unbelievable music and dancing. It was so joyful, and you get to ask yourself, why are we spending $100,000 on a wedding if we can spend $10,000 on a wedding and have as much joy as we did for $100,000 and not stay in debt for the next 10, 20 years, So what I'm saying is that, we are spending so much anxiety and overthinking about the stupid, little details of life, when that overthinking is not serving us with joy. And what we could be doing is like, hey, all of a sudden everything gets a proportion. We're here, we're alive, thank God. And that's what matters. And we have the music, and that's what matters. And even if we had just chips and whatever here, it wouldn't matter because we're here. And so if we take the magnification of the emotions that appear from this war, and from everything, and how we live modestly in the time of the war, understanding that the war allows us to comprehend how we can live in our regular lives with the same, planning from minute to minute, just living in the moment, and not going crazy with like stupid details that distract our lives from what really matters, which is growing emotionally and spiritually. Hashem tells us that over and over and over again. The Torah is here to remind us that we're here to grow emotionally and spiritually. In the meantime, we're spending most of our lives planning the color of the napkins, whatever. I'm just giving a silly little example. There are a million, whatever. Yes, it's nice to live in the dreamland of what my next vacation is going to be. But I can the same way go to the beach here and enjoy every moment of being here without thinking where I'm spending my next
But
$10,000.
now, we have to say, because there are people in our audience that are living in places where there isn't a war going on, where they don't feel threatened, and the big deal in their life
But they're
is
still feeling anxiety.
yeah. But their big thing in their lives is to plan for the big events, like the weddings and the bar mitzvahs and whatever, because they don't have that same sense of time.
And what
Time
I'm
is
saying
different.
is that because
Mhm.
this was what Yiddishkeit and spirituality in general, but Yiddishkeit emphasizes it very strongly.
Mhm.
But I believe, a lot of religions talk about it in this way or that way,
Mhm.
is that but Judaism says we're one big soul.
Yes.
God is all of our souls in one soul,
Mhm.
in one entity. This is the idea of Yeteira,
Right.
right? So you can wait for an experience in your own life that will teach you what matters in life to get everything into a proportion. Or you can look at your fellow brother or your fellow sister in wherever, and going through whatever in Israel and, around the world
And learn from their
and learn from
experience.
their experience.
It's hard. It's hard to. I grew up there. It's like you got
It's not even there.
beautiful
It's also
manicured
here. Yeah.
lawns, and it's quiet, and
And it's not like there's a separation between around the world, the diaspora Jews and the Israeli Jews. It's not like, there are plenty of Jews living here in Israel in all that kind of planning, and being anxious.
yeah,
We're very good with being anxious with the color of the napkins and going to work and preparing, whatever.
yeah.
But then when life, it's called in Kabbalah, it's called tzimtzum and ipashtut, contraction and expansion. Life goes from contraction to expansion, from expansion to contraction. If we get to see, oh, now Hashem is expanding my life, thank God, but I still want to live the expansion in a spiritual way, right? I don't want to, and I'm going to know that there's going to be, maybe there probably going to be, what?
The chances are good there will be
a contraction also.
Yes.
But then I'm going through the contraction with a wiser sense, with a sense of more wisdom.
Yeah.
And less pain, less suffering.
Yes.
Or like they say, pain will always be there. The suffering depends on you.
Right.
And this is what we say: "Akol bidei shamayim chutz mi'at shamayim." Everything is in the hands of God except for the awe of God. What does it mean, the awe of God? The awe of reality, the fear of reality. How much you're going to fear reality is in your hands. The reality, whether you find the right color of napkins, whether you find the right professional, whether you find whatever, like make the money that you planned or whatever it is, it's in God's hands. But how you're going to, what your attitude will be towards it is ours. So now we can only get to that understanding when, God forbid, we're going through extreme situations like life and death.
Yeah.
Or we can grow into that comprehension
Right.
through smaller events in our lives.
Yes. Well, that prepared us. I really
Yeah.
think so.
The woman that made the made the wedding last week. She's a very detailed. I love her very much. She's a very detailed person. She said to me, I'm always my everything, and she says, like, the suitcase for the Shabbos Chazan has been packed for the last 2 weeks, She's so prepared. She's always on top of things, But God says to us, no, it's not going to be in your hands. You think you're going to run the world? I'm running the world. You think that you're going to have a big Shabbos chassan, in the end you're going to have a Shabbos chassan at home and say thank you that everybody is at home alive. And that's what Hashem tells us. Just learn to be in, like, life is what matters, not everything else. We're so busy with the with the background stage, right? That we're not concentrating on life itself. If Elisha Rabbi, who came back from over 500 days in the tunnels in Gaza, can tell us, I'm the happiest person in the world. He lost his wife, his 2 daughters, and his brother. He didn't know for over 500 days that he lost his wife and children and brother until he came back. That's what kept him alive. That's what gave him the strength to decide to live in the tunnels, because he was sure he was coming back to them. Because when he was leaving them, when he was kidnapped, the feeling in the air was that they were kidnapping him but leaving them alive. Especially that his wife and children had a foreign passport. So he was sure he was coming back to them. So his heart was broken 10 million times to pieces. First by going into the tunnel, staying there for over 500 days, and then coming back and finding out that they were all gone. And he says that he's the happiest person on earth.
I don't know how he did it.
But we can learn from him. His pain receives meaning if we learn from him.
Yeah, of course.
Otherwise, his pain will only serve him. Will you allow that pain to touch us, our general soul? Rav Kook teaches us, magnifies that understanding, that we're a general soul, that godliness is about understanding that you and I and he and she are one big soul.
Yep.
If I understand it, if I internalize it, then that pain, his pain, gives meaning to the world. And if his pain gives meaning to the world, and I and you and she and he will grow from it, then hopefully we can go through less painful experiences in the world, because we are here to finally understand what matters in life.
Miriam, most of us don't really grasp that we impact each other. Our behavior impacts each other.
Right. And if we take, feelings of underestimation, feelings of what's the opposite of grandiose feelings? Underestimated.
Lowest self-esteem.
Low self-esteem. Thank you.
Yeah.
If we take, like I see it so often, let's take couples, okay? There's so much suffering going between couples in both directions. Either because you took someone thinking that they're A, and then they're becoming, thinking that they're amazing, and then them not succeeding in life, or, I'll go the other way around. You know what? I saw this couple yesterday on one of those podcasts, right? They're both in wheelchairs. He got into a wheelchair in his 20s on the first day of the Yom Kippur War.
Wow.
She got into a wheelchair in other circumstances, also in her 20s.
Right.
They got married in wheelchairs.
Right.
They have 3 or 4 children, I don't remember. They're in their 70s or something.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're both in their wheelchairs. And they're saying we're the happiest couple in the world. Actually, it was very interesting. They were like on this couples show, and it's like a funny kind of couples show. And they asked him, "So what's your problem?" He said, "We don't have any problem." Right? So what happens? It's like, why don't they have any problem? Because they don't have an attitude problem.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the problem of Yirat Shamayim. Chassidus says Yirat Shamayim is not Yira'ah, but read it as sight. Read it as seeing Shamayim. When I see how heavenly life is, how infinite life is, how much full of vitality life is, that means I don't have an attitude problem. When I have an attitude problem, everything is a problem.
Yeah.
So I have self-esteem problems, I have feelings of grandiosity problems, I have whatever it is that I have, right?
Lack.
But I'm seeing lack all the time, lack in myself, lack in the other,
Yeah.
lack in my children,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But when I don't have an attitude problem, then God forbid, those two people could be in wheelchairs for the last 50 years. They managed to have, an amazing life and have 3 or 4 children, right? They're even, joking. They could be, sitting there joking even about their intimacy. How like their intimacy is, we could imagine it as very problematic, but they even joke about that. They know about laughter. They know about looking into life's face and appreciating what is there and not what isn't. And we are just busy looking at lack all the time, judging each other, judging reality, judging God, judging our children, judging whoever, right? If we could come out of that and just, change our attitude, this is what we're here for in this world. Yes, Hashem puts a nice, whatever, a nice meal, a nice restaurant, a nice vacation, a nice flight, a nice bar mitzvah, a nice wedding, a nice this, a nice that, a nice couch, whatever. But this is not the essence of life. We flipped it around. If we could see what matters and put a little less significance on what doesn't matter and put a little more significance on what does matter and change our attitude, our relationships, our lives, our everyday and every moment, and even every difficulty could be so much different.
That's the blessing of going through this type of experience. Everything is magnified. You're really face to face with what you're doing to limit yourself, what you're doing to beat yourself up. You can see it very clearly. You can't like cover it up or make believe it's not there. It's like it's right in your face.
Yep. Yeah.
So,
Like it's the Torah in the last few parshas, we're reading them, right? Anxiety, both anxiety and scarcity
despise.
are already mentioned in the Torah, right? It's very interesting, actually. The Torah says we moved from charada, which is anxiety, to makhelot, which is makhelot in translation is choirs.
And you're like, oh!
How do you move from anxiety to freedom? By singing through it, by laughing through it, right? The Torah tells us already. Rashi says, actually, Rashi deepens the understanding. Back in the Torah, you don't understand what charada is. Today, it's a very modern and known word. Anxiety is a very known word. But back in the days, nobody knew what charada is. For them, it was a name of a place. Rashi comes and translates 1,000 years ago. He comes and translates the word charada, which is the name of a place, as anxiety.
Wow.
And he tells us basically, you want to learn to move out of your anxiety, learn to sing through life. Go to makhelot.
Wow. It's like Amalek. Amalek, is it a state of being or is it a people?
Also. And also the word scarcity, right? The first time the word scarcity, bahelet, is it's in the word. I think it's in the parsha of the Meraglim, right? The idea that you can stand in front of any challenge in life, like we stood in front of Eretz Yisrael, right? Scared. How are we going to conquer Eretz Yisrael? Better sit in the desert or, God forbid, go back to Egypt. Really? Like, who wants to go back to their past? I mean, seriously. Okay, sometimes maybe, a few of us were lucky to have had an amazing childhood or whatever. But most of us had challenges then and had challenges later and have challenges now. But if we look at life with godliness, right, we say it over and over again. what's looking at life with godliness? Looking at my present, seeing how the beauty in my present couldn't have worked out without the pain that I've gone through in the past, and understanding from that whatever pain I'm going through now, I will look in the very near
Yes.
future
Yes.
and now as the past, saying, wow, thank you for the pain of now because it had brought me the blessing of the future.
No, that's letting your head supervise your emotions.
Yes, yes, and that's all that we're doing in this world. The redemption of the world depends on that. Not that only reality depends on changing reality, but the reality could be getting better and better and you might not notice it
Yeah.
because you'll continue sitting in your mud of your victim mode.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
definitely.
it's like if you don't know how to tell yourself life is better now than it was yesterday, and life will be better tomorrow than it is today.
Yeah. That's
You
true.
know, I'll go back to Ali Sharabi. Just unbelievable what he says in his interview, and I really encourage everybody to go and watch it. I mean, I don't know, it's probably in English too. He says he was the oldest person. There were four people together, four Jews together in the tunnels, and he was the oldest one. He's like 60, and the rest of them were like in their 20s. We should pray for them. They should come out. You know, the names that I remember now: Alona Hall and Matan Engest, and those are the two names that come up to my head now. They should come home safely soon, and we should pray for their well-being. And at least they should get an extra piece of bread today and an extra glass of water, and everything should, Mama Hashem should protect them and bless them. And but he was like a father to them there. And he said, I taught them how to look positively at life. He said, so in the beginning, so I taught them to look for blessings in that horrific situation that we were in. And he says, at first we found 3 blessings a week, 2 or 3 or 4 blessings a week. And then later, we learned to find 12 to 15 blessings a day. A day. If they found between 12 and 15 blessings a day to be grateful for, can't we find at least 40? But how much whining and complaining we're doing.
Yeah.
Right?
And also, when you have Viktor Frankl's point of view, finding meaning in life.
Also.
That's how he supported the people that were around him. He helped them find meaning in life, even in the most horrific situations. And he saw that the people that were able to do that were able to overcome their fears.
I'll take an inspiration from there too to another person who told his story from October 7th. He said he ran away in like 100% burns from one burning house, and he hid in another family's house where there was a single mom and 3 children. So he joined them in their shelter room, and they started and everybody, there was a baby, there were a couple of older kids, and the mother and him. He couldn't hold the door. The mother, the wife, the woman there was holding the door the whole time, which was an unbelievable miracle. Just to tell a little bit of the miracles of Hashem, for an hour the terrorists were walking around the house but didn't try to enter the shelter room for some reason.
Amazing.
Unbelievable. There were so many miracles like that day. Anyway, so she was holding the door, and he was, found himself different little missions that he can do, helping in that situation too. He says, but once they were there for like 12 hours. The soldiers came for them at like 6 p.m., took them to another shelter where the soldiers were protecting them.
Right.
And he says it was the first time in that whole day that he allowed his emotions to collapse, to, a little bit, cry and fall apart, because like he didn't have time to cry in that survival situation.
Right. Yeah.
And when he got there, he allowed himself to a little bit fall apart. He was like, no, it's not good for me that's falling apart. I need to find myself another mission. So he noticed that he was one of the first ones that got there, that was everybody were being saved from their houses. He was the first familiar face that received them and gave them a hug. and he was all full of burns that were untreated for all these hours.
Oh, yeah.
And but he was receiving everybody, giving them a hug and a smile. He said giving
Wow.
them that hug and a smile revived me in those moments,
Of course.
right? So then I got to the hospital. I found other people to encourage in the hospital,
Wow.
right? Then I got to the hotel and the people that were evicted, and I found another, mission for myself to help other people there. But he said he understood very soon into the all the time. He figured out that as long as he was on a mission, he was okay.
Interesting. And I think that I find just being able to connect to someone else and help support them and get them to smile and talk about themselves and whatever, I think that's just what we're meant to do.
Right.
Isolating ourselves it's just, it's depressing. And yet that's such a big part of our culture, to isolate yourself, to worry about yourself. That's not what's satisfying to the soul. It just isn't.
And we think even more than that. We think that I have enough trouble with myself. I can't listen to your trouble.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how much can I put on my shoulders? But we don't understand that it's exactly the opposite. The minute I open my heart to you, I forget about my own troubles. And in the meantime, I've noticed so many times in my life how half the troubles were gone by the time I was busy with helping other people, and I didn't have time to deal with my own problems, and half of them vanished in the meantime.
And how a lot of times other people step up to the plate to help you out.
Also that, exactly.
They help you
Exactly.
out. I found after I called those two people yesterday or the day before, other people called me. It's like my brother thought to call me, and my friends from the state, they all thought I was on the phone all afternoon. Just because I stepped outside of my comfort zone.
What is that? God. That is God. Why? Because you are a part of somebody else's soul, and somebody else is a part of your soul. Right? That's the unification of God. That's the Yeteira that we're striving for. We're thinking, like sometimes we are explaining spiritual terms in too abstract way,
Yeah, I know.
and it doesn't add anything to our lives.
Awareness. It doesn't expand our awareness.
Exactly.
It's
So
just a
when
bunch
we
of words.
understand that we're climbing from nefesh to neshama to ruach to chaya to yechidah, or I should go from nefesh to neshama to ruach to chaya and yechidah.
Yeah.
Right? Nefesh is like the lowest level of existence. I have an ache in my arm. So what? Right? I'll do something. I'll even forget about the ache in my arm.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'll move to a more solely level of living, of existence, of consciousness. I'll move to my ruach level. I'll move to my chaya. What's chaya? Chaya is vitality. That's where I get my vitality from. Overcoming the
These are higher levels of the soul. These are levels of the soul.
right. Overcoming the complications. Overcoming my attitude to my hardships is what draws light into my life, vitality into my life,
And into everybody else's.
and to everybody else's. But we're very self-centered, right?
Yeah.
And then yechidah. When I'm doing that, I'm connecting. That's where I'm connecting to the highest level.
Yeah.
What's yechidah? Yechidah is one entity. But yechidah is also from the word yachad, together. When I'm connecting my hardships to feeling not my hardship, but your hardship, we are yachad. And when we are yachad, we are becoming one entity. And when we're becoming one entity, we're connecting ourselves to this higher power, which we call God. Yud-Kei Vav-Kei.
And I believe that's what we're all being pushed towards.
That's the essence of life.
And that's what we're all being pushed towards. And denying that and isolating yourself is just going against human nature. It really is. It's going against, and like loneliness is supposed to be it's increased so many percentages of the amount of loneliness in the world. Like people who are just isolating themselves and they think that's what they should be doing. Instead of like reaching out and connecting to other people. I don't understand that. Why not?
It's not good to be. It's. I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
but it's like, and I can get pulled into that place too, and we all can get pulled into that place of not understanding.
Yeah.
But we should try to understand it because we all have a moment of not understanding it. Why am I on a higher level than you? I'm not saying to you specifically. I'm saying in general. We could all look at each other.
Well,
Why?
yeah, but I'm not
Right?
me in terms. I'm just looking in terms of like physical and emotional pain.
Okay.
I'm talking about from that case, not from what level you.
Why can't you get out of your pain and do something for someone else?
Yeah.
We can all get into looking at someone and saying, just get out of your pain and do something good for someone else. No, that's not the way we should be.
I know we can't.
The way we should be, and
How do we
it's
encourage
like
people?
it's we say it in our prayer every morning. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Meno kol haaretz kadosh. Hashem is everywhere.
Yeah.
Where do you see Hashem? When things are good in your life. But then you have moments when you say, Ayeh mekom kvodo. Where are you, Hashem? Everybody has a moment of seeing Hashem and not seeing, or seeing how good life is and seeing how lacking life is.
Yeah.
So
I know.
when your friend is going through a moment of seeing how lacking life is
And isolating themselves.
and isolating themselves,
Yeah.
you cannot come and tell them kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. You
Mhm.
cannot come and tell them life is beautiful. You cannot come and tell them, hey, get out of your whatever and move on. Right? You have to be with them a little bit in that place of ayah mekom kvodo. Where Nachman says that the ayah is actually holier and higher than the kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. That being in that place of God, where are you? Resonates or opens up a higher level of connection to Hashem. So you could be in a deceptive mode of saying to yourself, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh.
Right.
You could be lying to yourself that you really believe in Hashem.
Right.
And you could be in that place of God, where are you? Please reveal me to yourself. Like, those people who say all the time, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. Then when the moment hits, right, they're like, where is God? Right? So you mean that when God is in your life, everything is Baruch Hashem? But, when in somebody else's life, you will preach to them about Baruch Hashem, right? So it's like we have to learn to be in that place of like, it's okay to be in the ayah. I think that's what this year had brought to us in a very strong, the last couple of years had brought to us in a very strong way.
Yeah.
Everybody's ayah moments were magnified.
Oh, yeah.
Where everybody's moments of God, where are you, were magnified. And we have to learn to embrace each other with a place of ayah, with letting that place be. It's okay. Maybe it takes us back to the beginning of the conversation of how do we bring ourselves up from this, like you said, our bodies are not joining, right? Our existence is not completely joining, transitioning from the place of acute fear of a couple of days ago, and being able to say, you can breathe, everything is okay now. We have to tell it to ourselves. How do we tell it to ourselves? We say to ourselves, God, the truth is, like if I think about it, how did I do it initially in my life? In those moments of the acute ayah in my life, in the acute clinical depression, in the acute times of being a neglected, I don't remember being a neglected, I was told about it, but I didn't remember being a neglected baby.
Right.
Or I remember being an abused child, right? And I remember finding Hashem in those abused moments.
Right.
And the truth is that we all have to look for Hashem in those abused moments. When we're able to find Hashem in those abused moments, I think,
Mm-hmm.
then we're able to give a piece of that to another person who's going through something similar.
Or we can feel more compassion.
We can feel more compassion.
Yeah.
But the question is it going to turn into a preachy mode inside of us?
Mm.
Or is it going to turn into an empathy mode inside of us?
Yeah.
We have to mind that very carefully. Now, we make that mistake with our spouses. We make that mistake with our children. We make that mistake with our congregants. We even make that mistake with our patients. We're,
Right.
like some kind of emotional therapist,
Right.
right? I've heard that too, right? Just like, somebody who just told us, right? Like if you, like this woman came to someone and said, cried to her therapist, I don't know, therapist or whatever, and Mashpia, I don't know exactly, who she was, but, she said to her, well, obviously you're going through, why aren't you Shomer Nagia, right? So you could do that, or you could just be with them in their mistake. People know well enough that they made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
Be with them in it and let them grow out of the mistake. Don't let them wash in their shame and guilt. And it's interesting to look at the word sin.
Mm-hmm.
In Hebrew, it's chet. Chet, we are used to interpreting it as sin, but it's also a loss, a miss. You miss something,
Mm.
right? And it says, "En adam omed al divrei Torah, en nichshal b'hem." A person cannot understand the Torah,
Mm-hmm.
or a person cannot understand anything about life unless you've made that mistake.
Mm. Unless you've sinned.
It's not only about sin; it's about missing. It's about taking the wrong turn in life.
Yeah.
Right? Once you've taken a wrong turn, you can learn from that wrong turn.
One time, especially when I was growing up, they were constantly publicizing how the wealthiest people in the world had to make how many mistakes and keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going. And it was the drive to accomplish whatever it is they, wanted to accomplish that kept them going.
I think Elon Musk was bankrupt like 3 times. And now he's the
Steve
wealthiest.
Jobs
Right.
yes.
Yeah.
Because they had a vision and they didn't stop until they accomplished their
Right.
vision.
And now what are they leaving us with? They're leaving us a legacy of keep trying, of
Yes.
keep going. And what is Judaism telling us? Exactly that.
Yeah.
Keep trying, keep going, right? You want the redemption today, right? But if you want the redemption today, you're like a little baby saying, I have no patience to wait. I have no patience for, to have a long process. Adults know that life is a process.
Yeah.
Are we going to be adults in our lives, or are we going to keep being small and infantile in our lives? Looking at lives like, I want redemption today. Yes, I want redemption today. Of course I want redemption today. But am I also going to tell Hashem, okay, you are the master of the past, the present, and the future. However you see the world, you're the master, and it's all good. It's all okay. Yes, it's painful.
Even though we've been waiting thousands of years.
Yes, the evolution of life is painful. But we're okay. This is what we call the people of eternity. Am Yisrael. This is what we're teaching the world, that we're not afraid of a long road,
and that there are gains along the way. We are accomplishing things along
Yes.
the way.
Yes.
It's not like
Yes.
everything's going to come in like one burst.
Right. So like I hear a lot of people. If we come back a little bit to our own reality now, I hear a lot of voices on one side, I hear the voice of, "Oh, we haven't finished the job," and on the other side, I hear the voice of like, "Maybe yes, we haven't finished the job, of course, right?" Two things to that. Number one, maybe Mashiach will come today. That's what we ultimately believe in. Number two is we did what we could for now, and life is a process, and we're working towards Mashiach. And even with what we have done now, with whatever it is, along the way, we're teaching the world how to do it with compassion,
Yes.
how to do it with tolerance, how not to bomb civilians,
Yeah.
but to only bomb army targets.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we're teaching the world, we're
Decency.
giving an example to the world what it is to do a war.
Yeah.
With now you can argue, you can debate whether it's right,
Yeah.
politically. I'm not saying, but as long as I'm not the decision maker,
Yeah.
and neither any of us, right?
Yeah.
So the only thing that we can say is that we're achieving spiritual goals together with our physical ones. So thank you everybody for being with us today, and we enjoyed being with you again. And until next time, please subscribe and send us a thumb up, and we're looking forward to seeing you again next time. Shabbat Shalom.